Last, for this very brief tour, let's look at the editing tools so you can experiment with them if you've got some spare time this week. Editing tools work on geospatial files and allow you to create or, edit those files. Let's start out with the three basic drawing tools to create a point, line, or polygon. Go to your catalog window and choose Connect again. And if you've already installed your GIS data folder from the download I've provided in your resources folder, go ahead and go to the GIS data on your C drive, highlight that, and then click OK to connect it to your catalog window. If you haven't done that, that's okay. Just go ahead and make a new folder and call it either new folder or call it GIS data. And I'm already connected here, so I'm going to click Cancel. And on the right in the catalog window, your GIS data folder should have come up. And now I'm going to go down to Incident Data, because that's where you'll keep all your new files. And I'm going to right-click and go to New and drop down to Shapefile. Now we'll create those three data files, point, line, and polygon. And they're called shapefiles. They have an SHP extension. They're the most basic geospatial data file used by ArcGIS. As a side note, it's increasingly becoming a best practice to create and store your geospatial files in geodatabases, where individual files are called feature classes. But we'll get to that much later in the class. Right now, let's stick with the basic shapefile. So first, we'll create a point file. And let's just call it point temp. And notice the feature type is point here, and you also have polyline, polygon, multipoint, and multipatch. And of course we'll just work with the first three. Then you have to assign it a coordinate system, so drop down to Edit. And notice again in my favorites I've got the 2 for the area I'm in California, but you could drop down to geographic or projected coordinate systems. And once again, we'll learn more about those later in the class. And for this exercise, it doesn't matter what coordinate system you use, but you ought to match the one you used for your base map. And then just click OK. And notice it comes up under Incident Data and Point Temp. Now let's do the same thing for polygon. We'll call that polygon temp. And you drop down to polygon and a reference system, zone 11, and OK. And once again, for polyline, I'll just call this line temp, the coordinate system. And there you go. You've created 3 geospatial files, the basic shapefile, and they've drawn in, as you created them, left here in your table of contents, and they'll be drawn in the order in which you created them. And notice also each has been assigned a symbol, but you can change those later, and I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, let's get to practicing entering data and drawing shapes. When you created each file, it automatically loaded on the left in the table of contents. You could also have dragged each newly created file into the table of contents, either all the way over to the contents or just right onto the map. A good practice is to drag it onto the contents window so you can place it in the order you want it to display. All data is displayed from the bottom up in the order shown in the table of contents window, so keep that in mind. If you put data below, it could be blocked by that above. Now you can either click on Editor and start editing, alternatively you can right-click on the file and choose Edit Features and Start Editing. Since I've already started editing, that key is grayed out. Now you want to make sure that your Create Features window is open, and this will contain your editing tools. So either click on the tab to open it, and if your catalog window is still there, you can close that by clicking on the pin. Or you can go to Editor and down to Editing Windows, and then Create Features, which will open up the window if it's not otherwise there. Now make sure the point temp is highlighted, both on the left and on the right, and you'll notice your construction tools for points appear down below. And so just click on Point and bring it over the map and click, and voila, you've created your first geospatial point. Do it a couple more times to get used to it. This may seem weird, but what I'm trying to establish in this session is a feel for the tool location and simple hand-eye coordination in working with tools and drawing points. Being comfortable doing this will help later on. As always, you want to save your work in progress, so I've put in a Save Edits tool, and I'll teach you how to do that later, but right now you'll go to Editor, drop down, Save Edits. And you probably also want to save the whole project as you go, so that if you crash, you can at least get back to that point. Unfortunately, ArcGIS doesn't automatically save or otherwise back up your work, so you want to get into the habit of routinely saving. Now let's do the same thing for the line and polygon shape files. So we choose Line, and a different set of tools come up. And we'll just choose the basic line tool. And you click once to establish the line, and you keep clicking to change the direction. Each of these points is called a vertex, and to end it, you double click. And a rectangle, you click your first 2 points to establish your top line, and then just drag down and double click to end it. Circle, same thing. Your center point, and it draws a circle out from that. If you right click, you can establish an absolute XY, and I'll go into that later, or the radius for that circle. Once again, double click to end it. And the last is the freehand tool, and this is pretty useful because you can just click to establish where the point starts, and then just trace over a stream or trail or cross-country route or something that's not otherwise marked on the map, and double click to end that. And last is your polygon tool, and your first basic polygon is just clicking and establishing individual vertexes and double clicking to end. And note that establishes the polygon as an area and not a series of lines that contain an area. It's an actual area. And the rectangle tool is the same as is the circle. The freehand tool is also the same, but you'll connect them and it will turn into a polygon. Double click to end. And this is really useful for creating search segments so that you can go along river corridors and use trails and watershed boundaries to make a logical search segment. And then your autocomplete polygon tool, this is established on vertexes also, but you click inside an existing polygon, loop outside of it, and come back in, and notice that it establishes a common boundary. And the same with the autocomplete freehand tool. You click inside it, draw a line outside, and then double click inside, and again you've got a perfect boundary between the two. On this menu, I've got Construct with Buffer. That's part of our MapSAR toolkit, and you probably don't have it on yours, but you click to establish a single point and start drawing as a freehand tool. Double click at the end, and it establishes a thicker line. You can set the width of that line. So that's useful if you're drawing a search segment along a trail corridor and want to define the line of sight for that. Say a searcher would be able to see 200 feet on either side, and you can set that to 200 feet. And then, of course, you once again save your work, and you can close. And from the editor, you just save edits and stop editing. And last, you can change the symbology on any of these. You go to the point in this case, left click over it, and your symbol selector comes up. Choose a new symbol from the long list of choices, and you have a number of style sheets you can choose from. And you can choose the shape, the color of the shape, and the size of the shape. Increase it or decrease it. And the same with the polygons. You can, for instance, choose a hollow shape and increase the width of the lines and choose a different color for that width, for the line of the width. And there you go. And the lines are the same. You can choose different types of lines, and they give you different ideas for what are standardized on maps. So for instance, major roads, highways, expressways. So you can change it to expressways. Okay, and that's it for this lesson. If you have time, it would be great if you guys could practice through the week. And the next set of videos will be on pre-planning